So we are back today with a double header because I have found the time to watch back over some games and put in some commentary. As predicted, I have already received several messages from people being like, "That was a nice deck tech. I have an RTN next week. I'm going to steal this. You want to do that? It's up to you." I think no hero in this game is super complicated. I don't think you can just launch into Katsu without spending some time figuring out the tempo and how he feels and how he plays. Um, you know, I'm personally of the opinion that it's always better to play a hero you've had lots of practice with than one that you've just seen as a shiny deck and it's a good for the meta. Anyway, welcome to Steelfur Speaks with me, Steelfur. We have had some other suggestions for names for this podcast/channel. Steelfur Supremacy, I quite liked. Someone sent me, let me see if I can bring it up for you guys. Someone sent me an image of a badly photoshopped bear wearing Dorinthia's armor. But I say badly photoshopped. It was better photoshopped than I could do. But maybe this should be my channel's new mascot. You guys can let me know what you think. I think this is glorious myself, but you can still see her hair, so it's probably just a bit too much. And I used to fence, so the idea of having a sword and being in this fencing pose. So I don't. If for people who don't know, the hand raised is traditionally something that fencers use for balance. You use your offhand raised, and then when you're lunging, you extend it so that you can maintain your balance as you're extending your reach further. So that's what Dorinthia is doing here. Is a very classic sideways on fencing pose with her. I would say it's probably a rapier. I mean, it's got this elaborate crossguard similar to something like you'd see in the Three Musketeers in sort of maybe 17th century France, but it is definitely sort of rapier shaped, or maybe some sort of like flamberge or something like that. I don't know. I don't really know that much about swords, but I know a little bit from my time fencing. Anyway, so I may be using that as a channel's new mascot. I think it's glorious. Can't replace her hair, but what can you do? It doesn't need to be perfect. If anyone wants to do a better Photoshop, you can. Anyway, we are here today on Steelfur Supremacy, Steelfur Speaks, to run through some actual games of playing Katsu. Unfortunately, the games I have for you at the moment are only Chane games, because at the event that was streamed, Chane is what we had to play with. So we're going to watch those, and I'll have it in my ears and I'll be talking you through the plays I've made. I can talk about other matchups. I just don't have footage of them right here, which is frustrating. So this is a game I played versus Dan Tripp, who runs Fiendal's Library on YouTube. I thoroughly recommend checking out his channel. He's also the one who did that Photoshop bear for me, so you can tell he's a great guy. You can see the fist bump here because we're pretty decent mates and we've played each other a few times. I am the guy who knocked him off his 5-0 record in Swiss. And this is the rematch in the second tournament. No, sorry, this is the game we played for the 5-0 in Swiss. And then I didn't want to show the game in the top four because I actually think that Tripp played, or Tripp had a better game with Banishes this, and it was a closer match. Whereas I don't think the other game was as close. But we might get to it later on. So he's going first. He won the dice roll. And he's playing a Howl from Beyond with an Unhallowed Rites for 7. So a very strong aggro turn because he's only losing one card, which is the Unhallowed Rites. And just coming in. And I have a lot of 2 blocks in my hand. So I'm going to be happy to take 3 damage, especially because he has forgotten to shackle. Yeah. And then he had to break his snaps because he forgot to shackle, which I think is probably the right call. Against Aggro Katsu, you don't want to be in a situation where you haven't got that first turn shackle. So he broke his snaps to do it, which I think was the right call if you've made that mistake. And my hand, I think at this point, was a blue Whelming Gust Wave and a Surging Strike. So I was pretty happy to just keep that and go with it. I wish I had leaned my hand closer. I do not recommend breaking cross traps on turn 1, but I think at this point I may have had an all red hand. And sometimes you just need to use the cross traps to break through an all red hand. And he just leads in with the husk, which I think is a mistake. I don't think you give Chane. I don't think you give Katsu the husk on turn 1. But he did. He respected the Surging Strike. it did kind of shut me down a little bit. If you see the cameras jumping, it's just because the camera sometimes shuts off. And at this point, because he's blocked that, I don't have the Whelming Gust Wave. I'm going to try and get some of these reds on the bottom of my deck because I don't need them in my hand. I don't want them clogging up my hand. And I'm going to arsenal something that'll be part of a combo, so either a Plunder Run or a Rising Knee Thrust or a Whelming Gust Wave, in the hopes that I draw the next piece of that combo later on. So 37-38, his turn, he's got one shackle, banishes the Howl from Beyond, not what he wants to see. I've already got his Husk, so at this point I'm actually feeling reasonably good about the game, because that Husk is actually not going to save him any life in the long run, because if we get to turn 6, he will have already lost all that life. I don't think we do get to turn 6 in this game, but, that's it. He goes in with an early Ebb and Fold. You can see we're both kind of pouring on the gas, really. Banishing a Riftbind red, which is just a great. So you've got Howl from Beyond Riftbind, so that's one blue pitch for 7 damage, which is really strong at this point in the game. And then you can also stab with the sword. But as the Katsu player here, I'm thinking if he comes in for 7 with no on-hit effects, I'm probably going to take that. I may block the sword because I don't want the rune chant coming in next turn and enabling his arcane effects like Rip Through Reality and stuff like that. And then we see the Art of War. So now I'm a little bit more scared. I'm thinking maybe I do need to stop some of this damage, but it really depends like how much he's coming in with and how many attacks he's coming in with. Because I'm not just against Chane, I'm not blocking unless I have a good reason. Like if I have a bad hand that's not going to do much damage, then I will block that hand and I'll just pitch Kadachi twice and do something else, and I'll block with 2 cards. But if I've got a hand I think can do a lot of damage, I'm not going to be blocking because I'm going to assume that by doing more damage, I'm forcing him to block my on-hit effects because he's more scared of me getting my on-hit effects than I am of anything else. So once again, thanks again for Tabletop24. You can see their logo in here. It is a YouTube channel. Please do recommend them. Please do go and follow them. Of course, Mana Screw is the venue, which is why their branding is here as well. Plunder Run from hand into a Riftbind for 5. Not 5. 4. 5, yeah. So I take 5. Yeah. He draws a card. This is a bit risky. I could have blocked that, but as he had 2 cards in hand already, he was probably already going to be coming for me. So it kind of just made sense to take the damage and let him come. Because at the moment, he's already shackled. So where's his next go again from? He doesn't have snaps. If he had a Shadow Puppetry, he probably would have played it on the Riftbind. So, I'm not seeing a lot of go again here. So I'm thinking he's got a Howl. Maybe he'll play the Howl. Maybe he'll come in with 1 more attack. He doesn't even have Rip Through Realities go again switched on. So I'm predicting I'm going to take another 4 damage, which I am fine with from an Art of War turn. And I'm kind of just sitting there thinking, okay, this is fine. And looking at my hand, just trying to work out my best damage an aggro playthrough. So we see a red Riftbind pitched. Yeah. So red and blue pitching for a Howl from Beyond to get that out of the banish zone, and then just do a big attack with it. Yeah, 7, 8 with no go again. And at this point, I'm looking at 8 with no go again. To block it completely would take a lot. And I'm pretty happy with my hand, it seems. So I take the damage down to 26. I'm not willing to give him tempo at this point in the game. When it comes to... The thing is, when it comes to this matchup, what is my goal? My goal is to get Chane low enough that he has to start blocking before he can get enough shackles to kill me. Okay? And I have a Plunder on an Arsenal, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to Kadachi 1 with a red Flick Flack. And then head jab for 6. Any card is a threat when you've got Plunder Run. I would have rather it not be a head jab, because obviously 6 is easy to block. But given the way I'm playing, I would say that... My memory of this tournament is a bit rough because it was last week. But I would say that given the way I'm playing, I probably have a follow-up to the head jab if he blocks it, which will get me another pull. But also, given the way I'm playing, I probably do not have a blue in my hand. So he's blocking for 8. And I come in with the second head jab, which kind of makes sense. Take 3, draw a card. So he's down to 33. I'm still losing the race at this point, but the card draw is good. I turn the card sideways just to indicate the mask triggers, so I don't forget. If it helps my opponent, who cares? It's much more important if I don't forget. Pitch a blue, Kadachi for 1, 32. Arsenal. I don't remember what I drew. It might have been another Plunder Run. But at this point, I am a bit worried because I'm on 24, he's on 32. And that really just was not a gas turn that I needed it to be. I only actually dealt 5 damage, I think. 4 damage because he took a blood debt. So things are looking a bit ropey. Which is why I wanted to show you this game, because it was the game that didn't go as well. Though I did get 2 cards out of his hand, which does make me feel good. And he comes in with an Unhallowed Rites red for 4. And he puts the Seeping Shadows back. I don't know if I agree with his decision to run Seeping Shadows against me, to be honest. I think it's probably not the card he needs. Yeah. Okay. I'm just asking him questions. How many cards has he got in his hand? What did he banish this time? What do I have to worry about coming in next? So at this point, because he's just shackled that, he has 1 card left in hand. I wasn't expecting a big attack. So I thought, okay. And then he came in with a CNC. I was expecting a sword swing for 1, but he came in with a CNC, which is not what I wanted. And now I'm sitting here on a very difficult decision. I think I had a Flick Flack in my discard, in my arsenal at this point, which I couldn't play. And I decided not to block. Oh, I lost a Razor Reflex. Okay, that's fine. I go to 14. So at the moment, I am on 14 to 32. And things are not going well. But, as often happens in this game, my opponent has to keep the tempo up in order to kill me, which means that if he wants to break through, he has to take the damage. Because if he blocks too much, then he won't kill me and he'll take more blood debt. So, my opponent knows this, and his goal now is to be taking some damage. So he takes 4, and he's thinking, I'm on 3 shackles, if I get a good banish, I'll kill him. Which is not wrong to think. And this is where he makes his big mistake, because he really should block this Whelming Gust Wave and just take whatever the banishes come with. But he doesn't. So we push through. And I draw a card. And now Mask is active on the next attack, which is going to be a Snatch. He takes the damage again, should have blocked, because I Snapdragon it. And then I draw a card from Snatch. And I draw a card from Mask. And now I've got a 3-card hand again. So yeah, my opponent should have blocked Whelming Gust Wave. That was a mistake on his part. Because Chane with 2 cards in hand and 3 shackles can often kill Katsu. And you know why he's worried? Because... yeah, but at this point he must think, I've got a great hand, I can kill him on 14. But he takes 5 from Torrent of Tempo, which is by far a mistake. And I could actually for 1. And Arsenal, I think it was a Plunder Run, maybe a Surging Strike at this point. And he's on 13 after being on 32. So I personally think this is where the game went against my opponent. He should have blocked. But I just want to, like, you know, this is the thing. Aggro versus aggro matchups, to get that damage across, you're kind of taking a lot of damage. It can be very easy to swing it against your opponent. Whereas if he had blocked that Whelming Gust Wave, I think he still could have dealt me a considerable amount of damage on his turn. As it was, his banishes weren't great. And that gave me a chance to get back into the game. You can kind of see, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this particular matchup, is you can kind of see how the Chane versus Katsu game is sometimes variance, because you can think you're setting up for a kill turn, and actually just have trash, um, and vice versa. Um, but he gives his next attack go again, because he's running low on go again, and he obviously has 3 cards in his blood debt pool that he kind of needs to try and get rid of, so he's not taking tons of damage. Yeah. So Seeds of Agony, Unhallowed Rites for 2. It's only a blue. Um, so it's only coming in for 3 damage. This, and I'm not spending a 3 block on 2 damage. So it's a blue seed, so I take 2 damage down to 12. Relatively fine with that. It's not really a big risk. Sorry, I've realized I should probably make this a bit smaller so I'm not just ripping off someone else's video. But anyway, that's fine. I have permission. He said it was fine if I did a recording over it because his branding is completely all over this place. So this is just a rebroadcast. And of course, please do click on the link in the description to just give his channel a like as well. He put a lot of work into that. So this time he came in with a Shadow Puppetry Riftbind for 6, at which point I decided it was time to block because I didn't want the Shadow Puppetry going off. At this point in the game, he's quite low and I'm quite low, so I can just start picking away with the Kodachis and blocking. The Blood Debt will start coming into my side. I get the final piece of his equipment, so I'm starting to feel a bit. And he takes. Yeah, we're just having a bit of a debate about the rules because the life because I didn't correctly take his blood debt down last turn, but he did. So he was saying he was on 7, and I was like, I thought you were on 8. Um, yeah. So just Kodachi threat every turn. He's counting on good banishes. He gets bad banishes. And at this point, he's running low on go again, which is why a lot of Chane players have started to run Flock of the Featherwalkers after seeing Matt Rogers do it. As you can imagine, so it's a bit mad. You know, yeah, it's just a bit mad watching them go at it. Yeah. So without so he pitches a blue plunder run, makes a rune chant. Without the go again, though, Chane really does start to suffer. That's why Scalar's breaking on turn 1 was so good for me in this game. I kind of wish we had one of those poker cams so you could see what's in my arsenal. I have a strange feeling it is a whelming gust wave. Yeah. So this is one of those points. This is one of those points in the matchup where people will think it's variance, but actually I've been expecting a consuming volition the entire game, so I have kept my breaking scales specifically to block it, because they can really shut you down with a consuming volition. Um, so it's kind of like, you know, sorry, someone's just messaging me. It is kind of like, I need to shut down the on hit effect sometimes. You keep breaking scales for a really close shadow puppetry, like if they come in for 7 or for a consuming volition. You don't just waste it. You just don't waste it early game. It is solely to stop on hit effects. He's coming in with a 4 with Go Again, which I'm somewhat scared by, but I'm not really expecting more than 4 more damage. Um, yeah. At this point, he's coming in with a Riftbind for 5 with Shadow Puppetry, but he has no resources. So even though it has Go Again, I'm tempted to take the damage because I don't see how he's going to play another card unless he gets lucky and banishes a Bounding Demigon. I don't think he's going to do that. So I think he's going to have an option basically to either take 1 more Blood Debt to have something for next turn, or he's not, and I can just or he's just not going to take it. So the Shadow Puppetry isn't going to be super effective. However, at this point in the game, on this much life, I am probably thinking I should block some of the damage. I'm just trying to see if I can see what my own hand was at this point. Oh, sorry, the camera went off for a second there. Yeah, the guy who was recording had some camera problems, which is a nuisance. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I blocked for 4 because I really just need to not take that much damage now. Um, and I don't like giving away the mask, but when I'm on 6 life, it can be worth it. He looks at the top card, but as expected, it's not really, it's not really something that he can play this turn. It is something he can play next turn, something he's willing to take 2 blood debt for, which, when you're on 5 health is pretty rough. Yeah. So I've got 2 cards, and I come in with a Surging Strike because that's how I roll. I think it's a yellow Surging Strike, so coming in for 4, so it's not lethal. I just need to put some pressure on him to get him blocking to reduce the chances that he can smack me with a full hand. And of course, if he does take 4 damage at this point, he is on 1, and then maybe I can block out his whole next turn, and he'll die to Carrion Husk. So that's a win-win for me. I came in for 4. But that's kind of what I was saying about Katsu, is you do have these awkward hands sometimes, where you've got a Surging and a Mugenshin, and you just can't play them. I think this hand was actually Surging, Mugenshin, Whelming in Arsenal, and I was really hoping to be able to keep the leg tap. I just didn't trust myself to go down to 2 to do it, because essentially, if you get too low versus Katsu or versus Chane, they will just arcane you to death if you're not playing Null Rune. So I decided to keep the health in exchange for a less aggressive turn, because realistically, I had to pitch the Mugenshin to pay for the Surging Strike anyway, so there was no way I was going to be able to go Surging, Whelming, Mugenshin. I was always going to have to go some combination of the two. He blocks for 4. I come in with the Whelming Gust Wave. I've already got 2 cards out of his hand, so I'm really happy. But he correctly probably needed to stay off of having of having 1 life, because the Husk will kill him then. So at this point, he's in a pretty rough situation. It takes 2 cards to block Whelming Gust Wave. If he doesn't block it, if he does block it with those 2 cards, assuming he has a 3 block in hand, he can block for 5. If he has 2 4 blocks in hand, he's still in danger from my breaking scales. But if he doesn't block at all, obviously I'll kill him with breaking scales. And that's what he says. He says I'll take 4, so he misreads the situation. I get +1 from my attack reaction. And he had 6 blocks in hand, so he could have played both of them, but then he would have just taken 2 damage from Husk. I would have drawn back up to full, and I probably would have been able to kill him after that. So that was game 1. My next game, again, thanks to Tabletop 24 for this. Please do give them a like. And here you can see the field that day. We had half of the top 8 was Chane, and it was literally Chane versus every single other pairing, which is very good. Yeah, I got to choose who went first because I'm the higher seed. So I definitely wanted to go first against Chane, denying them that turn 1 shackle and just making them play 1 turn behind you is just vital. Let's just skip ahead a little bit. Got all set up. You'll see the cross strap again. If you're playing an aggro heavy meta, you do not need Tunic. You can just play cross strap every game. Like you just don't need it. It's entirely optional. I only ran Tunic in 1 game I played in the RTNO one yesterday. It's just not. It's just not. It's just not there. So here I've just gone turn 1. I'm just trying to get him to chuck some cards my way, maybe put on some pressure. He's already taken 1 damage, so I'm fine with that. But also, like, I'm kind of just sorting out my hand because I don't necessarily want to keep all of these cards in my hand. And unlike some decks, Katsu doesn't have a lot of ways to pitch. Like I could have pitched a red but I had a yellow and a blue, so I pitched the blue to Kadachi, and then I can't pitch the yellow, but if I pitched the yellow first, I wouldn't have been able to double Kadachi because it wouldn't have had go again. So sometimes those hands can be kind of tricky, and you just end up playing a Mugenshin or like a 4-cost attack like a Snag, just to end the combat chain, make your opponent block in a way maybe they didn't want to. So here we see the Consuming Volition turn 1. I'm trying to decide probably if my hand is good or bad for aggro. If it's bad, then I'm probably not. I'm fine with blocking. If it's good, then I'm not. But if we look at it from here, we can see I've got a fine center, 2 fine centers, and that's 2 blues. Maybe I think it's 3 blues, actually. So I'm not really feeling this hand. So it's kind of tempting to just block for 6. I'm not really sure what again, I don't really remember this game, so I can't really say what I did with, but I think I just blocked for 4. I don't want to discard a card. A lot of Chane players have stopped playing Razor Reflex, so you're not actually super in danger from that. So that's just something to be aware of, that you're not really super in danger from Razor Reflex as much. Though some will still have it in, so kind of respect it, but don't be timid around it every turn. If they're going to Razor a Consuming Volition, you're having a bad day anyway. The other fine center gets pitched to start a bit of a Kadachi chain. 2 resources floating. Kadachi again. And at this point, often you get equipment. I think he blocks from hand, which I think is a mistake. He was saying he didn't have much experience versus Katsu, so he's maybe not going to block completely. So what are these chain games? So like if you're the Katsu player here, giving me a thing off your Arc Knight for 1 damage is not great, but it does work. It does stop the Mask Trigger this turn. Hmm. So he blocks the torrent of tempo, so I don't get the go again. But that's kind of fine with me because I got one thing off his armor and I got two cards from his hand. So, you know. Another early ebb and fold. I really don't know if I agree with this. I don't know that the pressure you get from this is worth using it this early. Um, I think later on, when you've got a big hand and you can like put a Riftbind in there, it's probably great. But I guess Plunder Run and Arsenal, it's not so terrible. So we've got an Unhallowed coming in for 7. If it hits, draw a card. So I'm not going to block all 7 of this damage. And that's... If I'm not going to block 7, he's going to draw a card anyway, so I may as well just not block anything and go to 32. I also feel like at this point I had some Scar for Scars in hand, so I didn't really care if he hit me a bit. Which is, is what it is. So, making a Rune Shard, coming in with the sword for 4 and 1. At which point I just take the damage because he doesn't have a go again after this. So it's not really a big threat. And I go down to 27. I'm quite far behind him in health, but I've got a full hand. And I'm feeling somewhat confident about the turn I'm going to do. You'll see I break the cross straps, so I'm really confident about the turn that I have because I've got a 4-card hand and I could definitely pitch for it. Though maybe it was a bit too early in this game as well. I kind of refined my use of cross strap a lot later in the next sort of series where I would only use it if I had like a red hand that I couldn't do anything else with. Um, yep, Surging Strike goes through. He probably should have thought about blocking that. But I had the Whelming Gust Wave in my hand. Right, yeah, so Whelming Gust Wave coming in with a red for 4. And by the way, if I didn't search for Mugenshин off the Surging Strike when I've got 2 cards left in hand, I either have 2 1-costs or 2 costs in my hand, unlikely, or I have Mugenshин already. So if you're watching this and you're wondering why that didn't happen, it's likely that the combo is in fact the piece in my arsenal. Um, so really, if you're playing against Katsu and you see that, not triggering Katsu but having the Whelming Gust Wave naturally, um, yeah. So if you're in that situation, it is a good idea to think, do I need to block the Mugenshin? Now, this early in the game, the answer may not necessarily be yes. You can look at my discard pile. You can see how many cards I have that can be shuffled in by Lord of Wind. And if the answer's not that many, then it is actually worth considering um, not blocking the Whelming Gust Wave and just blocking the Mugenshin. But it's a bit of a tricky one. This is the tricky line to block. Personally, I think you always block the Surging Strike because it stops me from searching out the card I need. And then maybe I have the Whelming Gust Wave, but if I don't, then then you're just basically just stopping the combo before it starts, and I have to play other stuff anyway. Um, in this situation, it would have been fine because I probably would have gone Kodachi, Kodachi, Snatch. But sometimes it can just shut Katsu down straight away if you block the initial part of the combo. Um, so again, I turn the card sideways just to show that Mask isn't active for them. It's more of a reminder to myself, but again, it's one of those things I don't. As long as I don't miss it, I don't care if my opponent knows as well. I'm not really trying to trick him with Mask. Um, so he just fully blocks for 6. I Arsenal pass. I'm happy with that. I got his Husk. I got 2 cards out of his hand. I am a bit worried about how much damage I've dealt to him because obviously, yeah, he banished nothing, which feels kind of bad. I'm just reading about allocations of Tales first edition and people being told they're getting less than the amount that they asked for. Should make me kind of nervous because we have no release date for Tales Unlimited, and if there's a massive gap between Unlimited and first edition Tales, and there isn't enough first edition to actually get into people's hands at retail, there's going to be a serious problem for this game before Christmas. Um, anyway, let's focus back on the game. So he's swinging with the sword. He didn't have that many resources, so I just took the damage. And this is the problem because he definitely didn't overblock, but he didn't really keep the right cards in his hand. Um, and I get to keep my full hand because I was only being threatened with 2 damage. So I'm happily to Kodachi him again. Coming with a leg tap. Um, if you're doing this as Katsu, the leg tap, Kodachi leg tap is kind of indicative that if it hits, you're going to search for a rising knee thrust and come in for 5, and that's where you want the mask trigger. So again, blocking the leg tap is the right decision because I didn't have a natural rising knee thrust, as you can see. I went and searched for it. If he had blocked the leg tap for 4, which is fairly easy to do, then he could have stopped me getting that and could have stopped the 5 on the rising knee thrust. So blocking that early combo chain is actually very, very good. And for Katsu, like keeping a ancestral empowerment or something to get that through is actually very, very impactful too. So technically, this card is banished for Katsu, but as I'm often playing it next, I'll just put it on the table and say my opponent, I'm going to play this next. It should be banished, but you can decide what you're doing while I'm shuffling, because that just gives them the opportunity to make their decisions whilst I am waiting, whilst I'm doing something else. Just see me doing a bit of a shuffle, get the cut, and then we'll see. So if you're playing Katsu, obviously you don't want this blocked. Is it worth a breaking scales? Maybe. Um, hard to say. He takes the damage, which is good. I get my mask draw, which I always like. And I have go again. So at this point, I don't have a hurricane technique, obviously, or I would be playing that. But you see a rough situation for the Chane player here. Plunder run, go again. None of the cards he wants to block with. So he just takes quite a lot of damage to keep that hand, but I don't know if that hand has gas without a good banish. Seeds, seeds, founding Demagon. Right, I just have to send some photos of my tunic to someone who is interested maybe in buying it. I think the tunic is going to be reasonably hard to shift at a price point that is comfortable, though how much it's worth, I don't think anyone really knows yet. So, this is a big turn. Rune Chant, 2 Seeds of Agony, Shadow Puppetry, Plunder Run, Bounding Demigon. Coming in for 6 damage total with the Rune Chant. And I take the damage because I've got a very good hand, I think, at this point. And I'm not super worried, just based on his banishes, that he has an amazing turn, really. This is kind of the problem with playing Aggro Katsu. The real challenge is deciding how and when to take damage to give it back. Remember to drink water when you're playing Flesh and Blood. It's very thirsty work. You don't feel it. I get through, like, if I make the finals of something, I'm getting through like 2 or 3 bottles. I get through at least 1 a round just because I'm always taking breaks to sip some water. So we see the Rune Chant being made to try and get a bit more damage. We see the Yeah, so this is good for me. I didn't take that much damage in the end. I kind of made the right call there, which is kind of what you have to do. And I've still got my full hand to come in for 17. And you'll see Surging Strike Red in 5. My favourite combo line. Just looking at it coming in makes me feel good. Your opponent has to block. He doesn't want to block. Everything about this combo line is perfect. Except the fact that the first one costs 2, but it has to cost 2, so... It's just very well balanced. Combo line is what it is. But of course, if he lets this hit, it will actually be a mistake, as far as I'm concerned. I think at this point you have to block this part of the combo. You can't let me ask the question, do I have a Whelming Gust Wave, right? Because I will just search my deck for one. Yeah, I will just search my deck for one. This is, like, I'll just get one, and I'll hit you with it, and then it'll be good. So I don't think you can take this damage. Yep, 12. Yeah, see? There's the consistency coming in. My opponent decided not to block my first attack, and you can see that I'm telegraphing now that I have the Whelming Gust Wave, because I pitched a blue, and you kind of telegraph this anyway if you're playing Katsu. If I had a blue, and I had a Whelming Gust, and I didn't have a Whelming Gust Wave, I would Kodachi, and then Surging Strike. So by pitching the blue first and leaving the resource floating, I'm telegraphing either I have a Whelming Gust Wave and I want to get a Mugenshin release, or I have a Razor Reflex to buff the Whelming Gust Wave. And the camera's gone again. Sorry, yeah, it does that. I mean, this guy has a great, amazing like overhead setup, but he yeah. So he let it hit because he was going to block the Whelming Gust Wave, the Begenshin, which is not the wrong decision actually. At this point, you are risking that I will do some more damage with the card that I drew. But at this stage in the game, when my discard pile has a lot of surging strikes and things like that in, you can't really rely on it to do the wrong thing. However, if I remember correctly, he does misblock here. He will block for 5, and I will get +1 from my breaking scales. Oh, he blocked for 6. Okay. Oh yeah, he blocked for 6, but I had the ancestral empowerment. Okay, blocking for 6 is definitely the right decision here. By the way, if you're playing if you're playing against Katsu, keeping the ancestral empowerment to either get a draw off the Whelming Gust Wave or get a draw off the Begenshin is good. If you have it in hand, it can be good to just keep it for the Begenshin late game, just because you're going to get so much more off those Lord of Winds when you go and fetch them. Than you will if you do something else. Yeah. Yeah. So he uses Art of War to make those block for 8, which is great. I always forget that this works, but yeah, it does work because you play it as an instant in the reaction window. Yeah. So he blocks. I am happy with that because he doesn't have the cards in hand anymore. And I get to draw back up. And I put pressure on. He gets his banishes. He's got 2 cards in hand, I think, still now. Which could be good, but, how much damage is he going to successfully be able to do to me with that? Um, it's hard. It's hard, I think, for Chane to put out tons and tons of damage when he's only got 2 cards in hand because he does have to pitch something. So here we go with the Riftbind. Coming in 5 and 1, which is fine. I think I just take the 6. That equalizes our health, but it's not really a threat. There's no on hit there. So I'm not really that worried about it. And I think I had a flick flack here as well. Oh, I didn't. Okay, I thought I had a flick flack here. But clearly I was liking the look of my hand with him being on 7 health, so I was happy to keep the pressure up if he wasn't killing me, which I think when Chane is getting to 4 shackles is probably a really good idea. And I did have the Kadachi as well. I did have the Plunder Run as well, so I can't really complain about that. Yeah, he goes to 6. I Kadachi again. I think I have a leg tap here. Yeah. So if he blocks from hand, this could, so you might be thinking, oh, but he turns off your Mask of Momentum. True, but if he blocks from hand here to stop the Kadachi, then I'm closer to winning. So, it's good for me if he blocks here, and he does. So it's great for me. I come in with a leg tap for 7, which is perfect. He needs to take 2 cards to block it, or I draw. Sorry, 3 cards to block it, or I draw a card. So, the fact that, getting people to block Kodachis, a lot of people think it's bad because, they're blocking Kodachis, you're not getting your mask trigger. But actually, them blocking Kodachis with equipment early game is great. Them blocking Kodachis with cards late game is fine too. You're actually fine if Kodachi gets blocked and you don't get the mask trigger. That's not really the purpose. The purpose is to get the cards out of the hand. So don't be like, I can't Kodachi because he'll just block it and then I won't get mask. The likelihood is if you don't Kodachi, you're not going to get mask anyway. And even if you do, he will just block the mask card anyway. So you use the threat of mask to make people block with their equipment, to make people block with cards from hand. So you see here, he doesn't have the block, and he's worried about the next attack, so he's willing to take 2. But obviously, by letting me draw a card, I might have drawn a 0 cost. Yeah. So you see, getting that first block stopped him from fully blocking the leg tap. So I drew a card, which let me E-strike again. So you can see, the consistency you're getting here is actually quite good. Then we have a remap. I'm probably not going to play all of these games. We have a rematch versus Trip, where I take a lot of damage again, very early game. He blocks. But again, the only way that he can kill me is to not he blocked the snatch because he didn't want me drawing a card. And you can see then he starts taking damage and pitching cards from his hand. This goes very, very similar to the last game where I was behind, I was feeling the pressure, I was taking the hits. But I got the husk. And the Kodachis add up, all the time. Yeah, cross-strap, surging strike. Beautiful. And you're kind of just at this point where if he wants to kill you, he has to take damage. Which is obviously, if he kept blocking, maybe he could win. But it's not really the recipe to beat Katsu, just blocking, because you're not going to fatigue me. So you do kind of just have to take damage and try and finish it off. But Katsu is very good at sort of blocking and then dealing a little bit more damage as well. And obviously the amount of damage that Katsu can deal in one turn really can even up the score. So Ancestral Empowerment onto Whelming, Mugenshin then with Katsu. And then that hits because he blocked the first 2. And I managed to get through with a bit of combat trickery. And then this is kind of all that Katsu needs, is just an opportunity. He fully blocked this turn. Because I had the Whelming, naturally, I could fetch the Mugenshin, and then I could get the Lord of Winds. Now, I don't have a lot of stuff in my discard pile to shuffle in, so I just picked up 1. So I shuffle in 3, and I come in for 5. And then suddenly you can see how, with the right turn, cross straps, whelming in the arsenal, suddenly this goes from a I'm drastically losing to, okay, I'm now ahead and he can't block. So Katsu just has that reach. Yeah. Then you'll see a small bit of a rules violation where I accidentally drew 1 extra card, but we fixed it. And then we just kind of go down. He lost tempo after that turn when he fully blocked. And then I could just slowly pick him to pieces. So 1 good tempo turn is all you really need. That's why it's okay to take all of that damage. Now we see these lovely streamers. This, by the way, on the right is the person who put in 10 hours to cast the day. So maximum kudos to him. And this is Mark, who runs Mana Screw. You know, maximum thanks to him for running the event. So this game, I'm just going to skip through because, you know, the Dash players spent far too long setting up. And you'll see that I was just able to smash him with combo after combo after combo. When I'm on 38 and he's on 10, he's just not really able to come back from that. So it was a bit of a blowout final. It's not that Dash is a problem. I think he drew badly. Putting down the second Purifier was probably a mistake. And then you can see me, yeah, super happy and shocked because I didn't expect to win one of these. Oh, so happy. Look at that. Yeah, it's a gorgeous thing. If you want to hear what I said here, you're going to have to go watch the original video. I did have some really interesting thoughts, things I said there about Katsu, so, you know, you can get that kind of, like, takeaway. I'm not really going to, you know, I'm not really going to go over that much anymore. Just kind of leave it there. Yeah, so that's it, really. Obviously, the prizes were great. I fully recommend watching some of the other games that happened while I was grinding my way through the lower tables and things like that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully, I will get some games that aren't against Chane. Though I know Chane is the matchup that scares people. I think this is the matchup that scares people, but I don't think that you necessarily need to be scared about it because in some ways it's a dice roll in terms of if they banish really well, you're going to lose. But other ways you can actually just, you've seen, you have those power turns where Chane has to block, and if they block too much, then you get a full power turn again. If they block too little or in the wrong way, then you get a power turn again. And really, if they block just right, maybe they can take it, but most of the time, but even then, most of the time they can't block perfectly. There's not really a good option for that. Sorry, I'm just telling someone about the Cold Foil Heroes thing. It's like, I think all of the Cold Foil Heroes will not have. But I think it's such a missed opportunity, really. So that's where we're going to leave this video. We're already at sort of an hour. I hope you've enjoyed the gameplay and the commentary. The thing I will say is I wish I could have shown you my hand a bit more, but I didn't. I thought I was for the stream, but I don't think I got the positioning properly right on it. So you'll see that I would have preferred to show you my hand because it would be good to show you what I was arsenaling every turn. In general, my arsenals are things like plunder runs. I put flick flacks in there sometimes. A lot of the time it is either the first or second piece of a combo. I really like putting the first piece in there if I have a spare one in my hand. But the second piece is fine if I don't. And that includes Rising Knee Thrusts reds. That includes Rising Knee Thrust blues. Whelming and Surging's reds and blues. Any color of Surging Strike. Any of my red leg taps. Anything like that. So, you know, that is something that you can do. And because those are just the really good cards, but also putting an Ancestral Empowerment in there, putting Razor Reflex in there is fine as well, putting some combat tricks in there. Ultimately, if you've got a red left in your hand, you kind of want to get it into your arsenal, just to give yourself the most chance of drawing a blue and some reds. If you've got 1 or 2 blues in your hand, so a Rising Knee Thrust or a Well, in Gust Wave, you might Arsenal those, but a lot of the time you're not going to Arsenal the blue because their role is to be pitched. However, against someone like Chane, arsenaling a Fine Center or a Crane Strike and trying to draw the other one on the next turn, especially crane's flight or whatever it's called, arsenaling one of those, getting a full hand, and then going Kadachi, Crane's flight, um, go again with the snaps or Razor. Um, Preferably the snaps, triggering Katsu, if you can before you do that. Like if you have a head jab or something, and you can trigger Katsu and go and get the Find Center and get out that Zen State token. There's lots of little things you can do to optimize your gameplay. This is why I kind of say, and I said it at the end of the last video, that you really need to be getting those reps in with Katsu with this deck to really appreciate playing of it. We're just going to end on this animation because it's gorgeous. But you really do need to get those reps in because there are a lot of these little edge cases in all of these matchups that you need to kind of be thinking of. Otherwise, you won't be optimizing damage. You'll leave damage on the table. You'll try and play like a double E-strike turn or something silly, and you won't actually get the damage you need or the out effect you're supposed to, and you won't Arsenal properly until you've given it a good work. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. Those thoughts is just get those reps in, find a friend, set up a gauntlet if you want to win, and kind of have fun with that. And I will leave you there. Thanks for listening, and of course, if you liked it, do tell your friends. Do subscribe to the video, like the video. Let me know. And if you are still watching, and you want to play an exhibition match against me with, one of the classes we haven't seen in this video, I'm more than happy to record those videos and to tell people about them. So just let me know and we can set that up. Thanks again, and bye.